Well, hello, and welcome to this demo of the PANC-DB data status and downloading tools. You'll see here on the page on my screen, I've got the PANC-DB website up on the home page, and we're going to go straight to the experiment data download page. You can access that here, and then also through the data menu up the top, you can go directly to experimental data download or data status. I'll show you that in a moment. So I'm going to start off with the data status page. This is designed to do two things, this page. Show you the status of the data within the system. Which assays do we have for which donors? And then it also lets you download and select and download data directly from this page. First, let's talk about the idea of experiments. Let's see that up here. It's called the experiment data download. This is called the experiment matrix by data status and donor. This means that this matrix is organized by the status of the data and by the donors that we have available. So an experiment is the term we're using for a collection of downloadable data relevant for a particular assay and a particular donor in the system. So at the top here, these columns, you'll see these are the various assays, the various data types that we collect from our collaborators for each of the donors. So, ATAC sequencing, histology, imaging, RNA sequencing data, and so on. They're all shown right here. This is to give you an overview of everything that we have. And within that, because this is a heterogeneous data collection, each of these assays has a different type of data structure associated with it. We use the term experiment to reference the subunit of data for a particular run of an assay, of an experiment by the data collection teams. So, an RNA sequencing that's run on a particular set of tissue for a particular donor, the run of that might generate, hundreds or thousands of files, but those are all grouped together as one experiment. And then if for some reason that same tissue and the same donor is run again, then maybe with slightly different settings or because of a quality control issue, then that data will be grouped as a second experiment that will be available in the system. So the experiment is just a downloadable unit. It could be one file, it could be 1,000 files. Now, I'll get to downloading shortly, but before that, let me show you the top part of this table here. Experiment count and these rows available pending never revoked and donor count. So this is the status of the data. What this means, the available row, this shows you how many experiments we have available for download for each, by assay. So we have, for CyTOF, we have 69 experiments available. Pending in the pending row here means that the data is expected to be generated sometime in the future. We just don't have it yet. Excuse me. The never row shows experiments that we never expect to receive for whatever reason. Some of those reasons, or a brief review of those reasons, are given below. I'll show you that in a minute. And then revoked. This is data that was made available in the system, but for whatever reason has been revoked. Maybe there was a quality issue or it was done improperly, they realized after the fact. So you can get a quick overview of everything right here by assay. And this top section gives you the experiment count. And then, so this lower section here gives you donor count. This means for each of these, how many donors worth of data do we have? ATAC sequencing, we can see we have 33 donors of available data, or 33 donors with available data, and 53 experiments. So that means that for some donors, we have more than one experiment. And this goes all the same down, available, pending, never, and revoked for the donors. Now, if we scroll down, we start to see the availability of the data status broken down by individual donors. You get a quick overview of some of the medical data and the demographic data for the donors. More detailed data is available in other parts of the site. And each donor here has entries corresponding, color-coded by these status codings right here. And for example, if I only want to see the available data, I can click that, and all I see are counts of available data Similarly for pending, never, and revoked. I'll go back to the all view, which shows you everything at once. Now, for data that's never coded as never or revoked, we have a little bit of a pop-up. So if I hover over this one donor here for ATAC sequencing, I get a pop-up that says, for this donor, there was insufficient material for the ATAC sequencing. And that's the reason why it'll never be available. Similarly here for revoked data, I say there's low quality beta cell fraction. So that data at some point was revoked by the contributing group for this reason. And if you ever need more details about revoked data, you can always contact us, and the data curator will let you know more detailed reasoning, whatever is available. And this is just the rest of the page here. It just scrolls down for the whole donor list. Right now we have 121 donors, and as you can see down here, there's just very little data available currently and a lot of data pending. Let's say I want to select some of this data now. Oh, actually, before that, let's go over to the filtering tools over here. This filtering options bar, sidebar here, lets you filter the displayed donors in some ways. So we can filter by demographics. I can say, let's just see female donors, and you'll see up here that the donor count changes. So I'm seeing 57 out of 119 donors, and that changes what's shown here. So now, previously, I think there were 33 donors with ATAC sequencing. Now, from this filtered group here, I only have 15 donors available. And these filters are additive here. So now I only have two donors with data available for ATAC sequencing. I can clear my selections right here. I can see some medical filters here. Type 1 diabetes gives me the similar kind of filtering, and any assays for which we don't have any data for type 1 diabetes will just not be shown anymore in this table. And lastly, in this filter option down here, data features, this is no longer demographic or donor-based filtering. This is, currently we have one option. It's for the institution that generated the data. Some of these data sets are generated at two or more different institutions. So I think for islet perfusion, I believe we can see currently we have 108 available experiments. But if I choose only University of Pennsylvania for islet perfusion, I have 90 available. That means that some of them were made by another institution, which I believe was Vanderbilt. Islet perfusion, 18 are available. I can see 101 are pending. So you can drill down to the data in some ways to this point. In the future, we imagine adding some more of these filter options. And as I change any of these, you'll see up here how many experiments are being shown. If I choose one of the data generating institutions, then all of a sudden this changes to 4,587 experiments are shown out of a total of 5,300. It just gives me an idea of how the data has been being filtered. I'm going to clear this again. Now, if I want to download some data directly from this, I can, for example, I can click up here if I want all the genotyping data. Boom, this column highlights. And if I scroll down and get to some donors where they have genotyping data, I start to see that their cells here are highlighted as well. And the donor rows here are partly highlighted, indicating that some of the data has been selected for download. If I look up here then, I've selected 11 experiments from 11 donors, and I have a total download size 126 kilobytes. That's pretty small. Let's say I also want to get all the data for donor HPAT51 for some reason. If I click on that as well, it'll select all the available data for donor 51, as well as any other selections I made before. And then you see a number of these assays are partially highlighted now, which indicates that they have one or more experiments selected for download, but not all of the experiments. Now my download size has ballooned to 157 gigabytes. Let me go back first and deselect this. With the small data size for download, 115 kilobytes, I have two options for download. I can just download directly, and what this does is just gives me a single zip file that I can download to my local system and then just unpack from there. Or I can download via an SFTP script. And what this does is it just gives me a script that references, gives an SFTP command with a list of all the files that I've requested for downloading, or folders in this case. And you just run this script from any bash shell or any SH shell, and it will initiate and run the SFTP download for you. You do have to set up a private key with the system first to get SFTP access. And those instructions, I will show you right now, are available here. If you go to your account drop down here, you can go to FTP download option right here. And then there's instructions here for uploading a public key. So you have to generate a public-private key pair on your local system. You upload that public key here, and then the SFTP will use that in conjunction with your local private key to validate your connection and start the download for you. So if there are questions about this, you can contact us through our contact link. It's down here and also in the menu above for contacting us. But hopefully these instructions here and in the script are clear enough. So now I'm going to go back to the download page. I think that is it for the data status page. And now we'll go to our other download matrix here in the upper left. This one is organized by cell and tissue type. First, though, look at the similarities. We've got the same filter option sidebar over here. If you make a selection here in the cell by cell and tissue matrix, and then switch over to the data status and donor matrix, the filtering options will persist, which can be helpful when you're going back and forth looking at the status of data and deciding what it is you're interested in. We've got the same download section here with the stats of what you've selected and the same download button options. And we have the same columns with the assays here, as you saw on the data status and donor page. The difference here is that the data is organized by cell type and tissues. So if you're interested in beta cells, you can see that we have 18 experiments that are classified as working on beta cells under ATAC sequencing. And under tissues, for example, if you're interested in lymph node, you can see how many experiments we have that are related to the lymph node and by what assay. Now you might notice that some of these numbers have little asterisks related to them. What this means is that they've been classified, the experiments, at least some of the experiments have been classified as having a particular tissue type and a particular cell type. So this pop-up tells you that these experiments classified as lymph node tissue are also classified as these other cell types that you see on the screen, B cell, immune cell lineage, etc. It doesn't mean that there's more experiments of each. They're sort of double counted in this matrix, which is why they're indicated with this asterisk and the pop-up data. And that is pretty much it for this matrix. You'll see little high-level totals for the number of donors, the number of experiments for each assay type here. And the downloading works the same. If I want to select a particular group, it's a 31 gigabyte download, so I have an option to download it via script. What I didn't mention before is that this direct download via zip file only works for a selection of data that's less than 5 gigabytes. That's just for practical reasons. And I can select multiple cells, deselect cells. It's pretty intuitive when you start working with it. So that's it for the cell by tissue page. And lastly, we're going to take a look at our by donor list page for downloading. Now this page is one of the original pages from the site. It's an older method for downloading. It's much less useful than the two new matrix methods that we just reviewed, but we kept it around because it might be interesting in special cases. So you'll see on the left again, we have the same filter options. We don't have the experiment filter options because, as I'll explain in a moment, this page does not organize the data by experiments in the same way. If you make some selections here, they'll carry over to the matrix download pages. This view basically gives you a look at the file hierarchy. for the data that we have. If there's a particular file that you want within data set and you don't want to download everything for an experiment, then maybe it might be useful to come here and just get that individual file for some reason rather than downloading everything that's available. But other than that, there isn't really a compelling reason to use this one. But I just thought I'd show that to you in case you were wondering what the tab was for. That's it for our download options and the donor status options for the PANC-DB. Please get in touch if you have suggestions or questions. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.